The remote town of Barrow, Alaska sits cut off, surrounded by 80 miles of wilderness with no roads. Every year, it goes through a full month of winter darkness, a period called the polar night. Close to this settlement, a mysterious man known as the Stranger arrives by boat, and after watching a strange ship far away, he heads toward Barrow. Just outside the town, Sheriff Eben and his deputy Billy discover a stash of burned phones hidden beneath the snow, clearly more than just a simple prank. They also pause to watch the final sunset they'll see for the next 30 days. Back in town, residents are busy either preparing to hibernate or catching the last flight out. With everyone distracted, no one notices a shadowy figure slipping into the local kennel and slaughtering all the sled dogs. Returning to the sheriff's, they stop to check on Bo, whose bulldozer is spilling fuel across the snow. Eben is about to issue him a fine when a radio call comes in reporting the dead dogs. At the same time, Eben's ex-wife Stella wraps up work and heads toward the airport in her car. Out of nowhere, a bulldozer crashes into her on the road, completely wrecking her vehicle. Unable to wait for a tow, Stella calls Eben for help, but he avoids seeing her by claiming he's busy and sends Billy instead. Billy rushes Stella to the airport, but they arrive too late, leaving her stuck in Barrow for the entire month. Meanwhile, Eben examines the dogs and realizes they've been brutally slaughtered, but their owners, Ally and John, have no idea who would do something so cruel. Later, Eben heads back to the station, where his grandmother Helen and his brother Jake also work. They get a report from the utilidor about some damage, so Eben goes to investigate. Carter and Wilson explain that someone destroyed their helicopter, even though it's normally secured. At the same time, Gus at the cell tower hears odd sounds outside and steps out to investigate, only to see the lights shutting down. Suddenly, several unknown figures surround him, and before he can react, they attack and kill him to feed, revealing themselves as vampires. Inside the town diner, the stranger attempts to order a raw burger along with a drink. The waitress tells him there's a rule forbidding alcohol sales during the dark month. The stranger begins causing trouble, but luckily Eben and Stella arrive just in time to stop things from escalating and take him into custody. Elsewhere, a group of pipeline workers finish their shift when one of them is suddenly pulled into the darkness. Moments later, his lifeless body is thrown back onto the snow, sending his friend running in terror. The third worker freezes in place, and the vampires quickly close in around him. Back at the station, Eben questions how the stranger managed to get into town, but the man refuses to speak. Suddenly, the internet cuts off, and when Eben tries calling Gus, he realizes the phone lines are down too. At that same moment, the entire town loses power, and the stranger ominously declares that they are coming. Eben heads to the cell tower to investigate and finds a trail of blood leading him to Gus's severed head. Shocked and terrified, Eben rushes back and drives through town warning everyone to stay indoors. He tells them that if they don't have a generator, they should gather in the diner. At John's house, Ally is making dinner when a vampire suddenly smashes through the window and drags her outside. Hearing her screams, John grabs his rifle and runs after her, but as he gets close, the creature slashes at him to keep him back. Refusing to quit, John tries again and even manages to grab Ally's hand, but the vampire overpowers him and takes her away. At the station, the stranger continues talking about how everyone's end is near. Jake gets irritated and throws a piece of his game at him, which only pleases the stranger since he can use it to unlock his cell. As Jake moves to grab it back, the stranger takes the opportunity to attack him, but just then Eben arrives and shoots the man in the arm. He then cuffs the stranger to the cell door and prepares to question him further. But the stranger only replies that every single one of them is going to die. Eben tells Helen and Jake to remain inside while he and Stella go out to search for the culprit. After driving for a short time, Eben suddenly stops the car because he notices something, and when Stella looks through her binoculars, she becomes frightened and tells him to get back in quickly. They attempt to drive away, but a vampire leaps onto the roof of the car, and Eben's gunshots have no effect on it. Stella slams the brakes, causing the creature to fall off, giving them a chance to escape back toward town. When they arrive, they find the place burning in several spots and hear gunfire echoing around. Helen radios them asking for assistance, so they rush to the station, but they're already too late. Helen and Jake are missing, with nothing left except a trail of blood. The stranger remains locked up, frustrated that they didn't take him, and begs Eben to help him end his life. Eben actually thinks about doing it, but Stella stops him from going through with it. At the same time, the vampires gather in the town as their leader Marlowe addresses them. He tells them to make sure they remove the heads of their victims so they don't come back as vampires. He also says they should have come here earlier since the endless darkness suits them perfectly. After that, the vampires spread through the town, brutally attacking and feeding on anyone they find. A terrified group of survivors gathers inside the diner, all saying the same thing: their bullets had no effect. Eben and Stella show up and are relieved to find Jake alive, but sadly Helen didn't survive. They start discussing what to do next, and Carter suggests going into the utilidor, but it's considered too dangerous because of the distance. One woman mentions that her neighbor's house has an attic with a hidden ladder and was boarded up before the owner left. Eben tells Carter to lead everyone there while he and Stella create a distraction for the vampires. They drive through town acting as bait, and soon several vampires latch onto the car, trying to break in through the windows. Eben manages to kill one by targeting its head, but then Marlowe takes his gun, and the car ends up flipping over. The vampires move in on Eben and Stella again, but suddenly Beau arrives with his bulldozer and runs them over. Eben and Stella quickly climb into the machine with him, and they speed off until they reach the house with the hidden attic, which is well concealed just as promised. Eben tells everyone they'll need to take turns sleeping and carefully manage their food, believing they can survive since they're used to the polar night unlike the vampires. Meanwhile, Marlowe and Iris go to the station to see the stranger. They praise him for doing his task perfectly and say they'll turn him, but instead, Marlowe hugs him and kills him. 6 days go by, and the group manages to survive inside the attic, although Wilson's father Isaac sometimes struggles with dreams about his late wife. One night, they hear sounds outside, and Stella peeks through a small opening, seeing the vampires looting nearby houses. Some people want to leave before they're discovered, but when Eben and Stella warn them it's too dangerous, an argument breaks out. Eben calms everyone and reminds them they need to stick together, then realizes the vampires are getting too close. They decide they must go out to collect supplies from a store and later hide in the utilidor, but they'll need a distraction, so they plan to move during the next blizzard. On the 7th day, they hear Kristen walking through the streets, calling out for help. Eben notices vampires moving across rooftops behind her, realizing she's being used as bait. The group insists on helping her, so Eben steps outside and also spots John hiding beneath a house. Eben focuses on saving Kristen first and tells John to wait, but the delay costs him, and the vampires reach Kristen and begin attacking her before feeding. While they're distracted, Eben goes to help John, but once he pulls him out, he realizes John is already turning into a vampire. Eben tries to reason with him, but John loses control and attacks, slamming Eben into a swing set where chains trap him. Luckily, Eben finds an axe nearby and uses it to defend himself, eventually killing John with several well-placed blows. After that, Eben rushes back inside the house, where he collapses due to an asthma attack. Outside, Marlowe discovers John's body and understands that someone else must be nearby. A moment later, now it's Stella's shift to keep watch, but Isaac takes advantage of her dozing off and quietly leaves the basement. Stella and Wilson hear the door and quickly follow him, persuading him that trying to reach the town on foot is a terrible plan. Isaac breaks down, believing his wife wouldn't survive, and then heads into the bathroom. Just seconds later, they hear a sound and realize the door is locked. Wilson manages to unlock it, only to find that Isaac escaped through the window, so he runs after him, pushing Stella aside when she tries to stop him. Eben hears the noise and comes downstairs to check on Stella, but at that exact moment, a vampire enters the house, forcing them to hide in the bathroom. The creature searches the house and slowly moves toward the bathroom door, but just before opening it, it hears Wilson calling for his father outside and goes after him instead. As Wilson is killed, Eben and Stella rush back up to the attic, weighed down by guilt for leaving him behind. Soon, heavy footsteps echo from the roof, and Eben looks outside to confirm that the vampires have left and that a strong snowfall has begun. Taking advantage of the snowstorm as cover, the survivors head to a nearby store to collect as many supplies as they can carry. Suddenly, they hear something and are horrified to see a young vampire feeding on a body. The group quickly runs to call Eben, but when he approaches with his axe, the girl disappears. Eben keeps searching, and suddenly the girl emerges from the darkness and attacks him, knocking the axe from his hands. The others rush in to help, grabbing the girl and pinning her to the wall so Jake can kill her with the axe, an act that deeply shakes him. The survivors prepare to leave, but notice the snowfall has stopped, forcing them to remain inside the store until another storm arrives. On the 18th day, Eben warns that they must move because the vampires will soon reach them. The utilidor is still too far without cover, so they decide to head for the police station instead, but they'll need a distraction. They realize the stranger had cut off communication earlier because the vampires couldn't operate during daylight, and Eben remembers Helen had UV lights at her house, planning to use them as weapons while the others escape. Eben runs outside, deliberately making noise to draw the vampires' attention, but one of them chases after the escaping group and attacks a survivor. The group is forced to leave him behind as they continue running, eventually reaching the station safely. The vampires gather around Helen's house, and Marlowe lets Iris go in first, but the moment she enters, Eben greets her with the bright UV light. Iris collapses into the snow as part of her body burns, and the vampires move to shut down the generator to cut the power. Eben escapes through the back while staying in contact with the others via walkie-talkies, and Bo directs him to head toward Rogers Avenue. Seeing Iris suffering, Marlowe asks for her permission and then feeds on her so she can die without pain. The rest of the vampires chase Eben, only to be suddenly struck down by Bo driving a ditch driller. He shoots at any that try to climb onto the vehicle, but eventually they overwhelm him, so Bo crashes the machine into a building. He exits carrying a box filled with explosives, and since his gun is jammed, he lights a flare and tosses it inside. Eben witnesses the massive explosion that destroys several vampires and runs off in grief, though Bo is still alive at that point. When Bo emerges from the wreckage, Marlowe mocks him before killing him with a stomp. Eben reunites with the others at the station, but the moment is interrupted when Carter reveals he was bitten by the girl in the store while they were holding her down. Carter explains that he lost his family in a car accident and has long wanted to end his life but never found the courage, and now he finally has a reason to ask for help. Eben hates the idea but understands it's necessary for everyone's safety, so he takes Carter into another room and ends his life while the others listen. On the 27th day, they spot a light coming from a nearby house. Eben and Stella go to investigate and are shocked to find Billy sitting beside his family's bodies after killing them to spare them from the vampires. He admits he tried to take his own life as well, but his gun failed to fire. Eben angrily confronts Billy for not even attempting to save his family before the three of them head back to the station, only to discover it's empty. Since the snow has started falling again, they assume the others move to the utilidor and begin heading there. When they hear noises, they hide beneath a house and notice Gale walking down the street. Stella quickly pulls her under the house just before a vampire appears, so Eben chooses to distract it to let them escape. Instead of following the women, Billy runs off in another direction out of fear, drawing the attention of another vampire. Eben safely reaches the utilidor and reunites with the group, but becomes worried when Stella and Gale don't arrive. Meanwhile, Marlowe gathers the vampires and reminds them that humans must never know they exist, so every survivor must be found and killed. Back in the utilidor, Billy shows up, unaware that a vampire is right behind him. The creature attacks and bites Billy, and the group rushes to help when they hear his screams. This vampire proves stronger and overpowers Eben, nearly throwing him into a metal grinder. Billy jumps onto the creature and shoves it into the grinder, killing it but losing his own arms in the process. To make things worse, Billy begins turning into a vampire, leaving Eben with no choice but to kill him as well. On the 30th day, the survivors start celebrating, knowing the sun will soon rise. Eben finally reaches Stella through the walkie-talkie, and she tells him she and Gale are hiding beneath a nearby car. Eben looks out and sees they are surrounded by vampires, so he tells Stella to stay hidden until morning so they can watch the sunrise together. But the vampires grow impatient and use the fuel Bo's bulldozer spilled across town to start a fire. If Stella and Gale remain under the car, they will burn, but if they come out, the vampires will kill them. Realizing a human can't win this battle, Eben draws blood from Billy using a syringe and injects it into himself. As the transformation begins, the others consider killing him, but Jake steps in, crying as he protects his brother. Eben embraces Jake for a final goodbye, then walks outside to challenge Marlowe to a one-on-one fight. Marlowe accepts and easily overpowers Eben at first, but this distraction allows Stella and Gale to escape. As Eben's body continues changing under the assault, just as Marlowe is about to finish him, Eben's eyes turn completely black. With his new vampire strength, Eben strikes Marlowe's head with such force that he kills him instantly. With their leader gone, the remaining vampires flee, but Eben doesn't chase them since sunrise is near. Stella realizes the sunlight will affect Eben as well, so she brings him to the top of a hill. They share one last kiss as the sun rises, and Eben turns to ash in Stella's arms.